I'm a low-level US government employee. I just saw something I wasn't supposed to see. You know that meme about how presidents and governors, after getting elected, look super shell-shocked and stressed the next time they make a public appearance? Like the first thing that happens after you come into power is that you're pulled into a room and told all of the secrets of the world? Well, turns out it's true. As a matter of fact, it's a VHS tape. The 4-hour tape was always a bit of an urban legend at the office. I'll be keeping the details of my role in government very vague, but to be absolutely clear, I am very low level. My role is caked between layers of bureaucracy, and in the grand scheme of things, it's a pretty inconsequential role. When you're working at my level, you're generally not privy to any high-level secrets. Yes, top-secret meetings did occasionally happen in our building, but my focus is pretty limited and heavily administrative. So, you do what any other department does when you're in the bottom rung of the hierarchy. You discuss rumors, rumblings, crazy conspiracy theories, and everything in between. It's water-cooler conversation for us. Man, I wonder what the folks at the top are doing right now, that kind of stuff. Out of all of the rumors that fluttered around the office, the 4-hour tape was always the one I found the most fascinating. The crux of it, once you reach the highest clearance level, you are sat down and shown this tape. None of us knew what the contents of the tape were, or if a tape like this even actually existed, but it was fun to speculate about it every now and then. Most of the time, we found with our little rumors and conspiracy theories, that the most mundane answer was usually the correct one. Life, in general, finds a way to surprise us with how boring everything can be. Now, there's something you should know about me before I continue. I'm a wimp. I'm meek, anxious, and generally restless. I'm a chronic rule follower. There's no part of me that wants to dig up secret documents and uncover the truth about what happens at the highest levels of government in our country. So when I discuss the events of 4 nights ago, please be mindful of that. I didn't ask for this. And I'm only sharing because I don't know how much time I have left anyway. And I can't live with this stuck in my conscience, alone. It was nighttime at the office. I'm known to be a bit of a chronic workaholic, and there was something I really wanted to get done before the week was over, so I was working later than usual. I went to print a document on what I thought was the printer in my immediate vicinity. The notification on my computer showed that my document was being printed, but I didn't hear any noise or paper coming out from my local printer. I checked the name of the device I selected, and it looked like I'd accidentally clicked on a printer that was being used on another floor. I sighed. In any normal circumstances, I probably would have just forgotten about that mistake and reprinted the documents on my local printer again, but our general management here is quite stringent on us making sure that all confidential documents are accounted for. We are not allowed to share department-specific documentation to other departments. Fuck it, I thought. I looked up a map in my inbox showing the locations of all of the company printers. Turns out, I'd accidentally clicked on the printer named Prince Charming on the 7th floor. Ha! Funny name. Off I went. I really should have just let it be. I got to the elevator and rode it up to the 7th floor. I emerged onto the mostly empty office area. In case you were wondering, the building I work in is huge. But I'd worked there long enough to know my way around it, so I knew the area surrounding the printer relatively well. I made my way through the hallways and eventually spotted the printer with my freshly printed papers minting it. I gave myself a mental pat on the back for continuing my lifelong streak of following the rules. As I went to grab the papers, I noticed some light buzz in a meeting room nearby. I looked through the window to see roughly 10 people hanging out around a snack table. In the room was a large old-looking TV on a cart, and rows of some of the fanciest folding chairs I'd ever seen, organized in a neat fashion. I didn't think much of it, and started walking off, until I heard the door open. "Hey! Mr. Boskowitz, right? Jesus man, we were supposed to start 15 minutes ago. Get in here." What? "No, sorry, I think you have the wrong. I don't care why you're late, just get in here, grab a plate of snacks and sit down, we're starting soon. Put your phone in the bag, electronic watch in the bag, and anything else on your person that can be used to record audio or video," he responded hastily. Something about his sternness and tone short-circuited my brain. For guys like me, there is a third option beyond fight or flight. It's called the just go with it until it's over, also known as the captured rabbit strategy. I put my phone and my watch in the bag. I meekly tried to butt in with another "Sir, I'm not Mr. Boskowitz," but he had already pulled me into the room at this point. He closed the door and walked to the front by the TV. I thought about making a break for it, but I decided to just see it through at this point, hoping deep down that whatever was happening was as inconsequential as my job was. Everyone had their snack plates and were heading to their seats. I awkwardly grabbed a muffin from the snack table, put it on a napkin, and took a seat in the very back row. Everyone was spaced out from each other. It didn't seem like any of these folks knew one another. I quietly sighed at the thought of having to sit through some sort of boring informational seminar or irrelevant training session. After a few minutes of everyone settling in, the man who originally brought me into the room started talking. There was an equally serious guy standing next to him, and a Secret Service-looking fella standing in the corner. I started wondering to myself why we were going to watch a video off of a very old-school-looking TV. Felt like we were all back in elementary school or something. "Alright, I just need to do a final run-through before we get started," the man at the front said. "I know you all read through the emails and signed your releases. I just wanted to recap some ground rules. You're allowed to get up and grab another snack, but beyond that, we want you to pay full attention to the tape once it starts playing. If any of you need to go to the bathroom, we strongly urge you to wait until the presentation is over. If you absolutely have to go, we will pause the tape and one of us will escort you. There's water in the corner by the snacks, cups are right there as well, and goes without saying, but any discussion of this presentation to folks who do not have top compartmented clearance is a breach of your terms of employment, a breach of your non-disclosure agreement, a breach of your multiple signed releases, a breach of the U.S. Criminal Code in the state of redacted, and a breach of the conditions laid out by the Committee for the Protection and Preservation of Human Consciousness." They started dimming the lights. Fuck. It felt like I had missed any window of opportunity one had to leave. Too late. That committee name he highlighted sounded way above my clearance level. One of the men at the front of the room pulled out a VHS tape from a bag, and very slowly and securely put it into a VHS player. He pressed play. I took a deep breath. Those water cooler conversations I'd had with my coworkers were starting to float to the top of my mind, but I quelled them. There was probably no need for panic. It was just a stupid government meeting, right? The tape started. The beginning was familiar enough. various disclaimers about this being incredibly confidential material, yada yada yada. Insignias of relevant organizations, presidential libraries, etc. I'd seen lots of videos like this already. But wait. That insignia looked strange. Like something was off. I scanned it. Presidential libraries. That same eagle. Those same stars. Weird. This time, there was a navy blue hand on the left shoulder of the eagle. Did they update the logo? Before I had time to ruminate on it too much, the tape cut to a logo I had actually never seen before. Committee for the Protection and Preservation of Human Consciousness. The logo was just an image of planet Earth. Fair enough. The video cut to a room that looked similar to the Congress floor, but with some strange differences. Seats were much more spaced out, the podium looked like it had seen better days, and the whole room looked to be on a pretty steep incline. Everything was in black and white. It looked like there were about 50 people in attendance. It was hard to make out the faces. Everything looked very dated, like the video was from the 40s or the 50s. The tape lingered on this one shot for quite a while. Minutes passed. I noticed what looked to be a choir, all in outfit and perfectly huddled next to each other, standing in one of the corners of the room. It really felt like I shouldn't have been seeing this. None of this was meant for my eyes. After a few more minutes, the tape abruptly cut to an awkward angle video of a man speaking at the podium in the room. It was too zoomed in, enough that you couldn't see his eyes or his hair. It didn't look all that professional. I couldn't tell who he was. He spoke. Members of the Committee for the Protection and Preservation of Human Consciousness, I thank you all for coming tonight. We are lucky to be in the good graces of our visitors today. Without rehashing our painful history, the tape cut to a camera slowly panning over all of the faces of the folks seated in the room. The attendees looked pained, somber. The man continued his speech as the camera continued panning over the committee. We can acknowledge that the journey to this moment has been an arduous one. I am pleased to say that humanity, faced with a dire ultimatum, has come to a majority decision. To our esteemed guests from across the solar system, we are thankful for the opportunity you have given us to negotiate with you. I felt adrenaline. Fuck, we had made contact with extraterrestrial life. This was the truth. Maybe, like the saying went, the truth would set me free. Before I outline the decision taken by humanity, I want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank the brilliant representatives from all of the nations of the world, who came together to ensure that this decision was taken with utmost responsibility, care, and appreciation for our human species. I am aware that this was not a unanimous decision. Shit, what did that mean? I felt the sweat on my brow. I felt nausea coming in. I awkwardly and slowly took a bite of the muffin. The tape returned to a now corrected angle of the speaker at the podium. His eyes were visible. They looked strained. Like they'd seen multiple versions of hell. To the nations who still disagree, he continued, I thank you nonetheless for accepting the majority decision. May this moment, which will be held in secrecy throughout the rest of time, be appreciated as a critical milestone for human civilization. Tonight is not a victory. It is a somber moment. However, we were faced with two options: extinction or accepting the agreement. We made our choice, and I believe time will show that this was the right decision. What was this: I hereby announce that we accept the agreement provided by our special guests who have chosen to go by the name Redacted. The intergalactic species known as Redacted will allow humanity on planet Earth to continue to populate, grow, and innovate. In return, all governments of the world will honor the promise. He needed to spit it out. What the fuck was this agreement? We will not be covering every element of the agreement in this session. I will, however, highlight the main points. At this point, the video showed the man at the podium looking down. He was reading off of something. For the first time, he looked nervous. Scared. I saw some humanity in him. We honor the agreement that, Redacted, hold the right to visit planet Earth on a recurring basis. They will be allowed to consume, for the basis of nourishment, a majority of the human population on planet Earth. After every visit, the remaining humans on Earth will be expected to breed and grow to capacity in time for the next visit. We acknowledge that we will maintain a parallel history which will be shared with our world's population, to ensure that humanity stays motivated to continue existing as a species. This parallel history may suggest that mass extinction events are the results of man-made folly, as opposed to the work of external forces. For the first time, my fight or flight response was actually flight. I wanted to escape, but I didn't know what I'd even be running from. The last visit by Redacted was approximately in the year 1346, and it lasted 7 years. We will continue to honor our parallel history about this event. I just wanted it to end. The next visit, which will not be met with resistance, will be in the year 2028, and will run for 1 full calendar year on Earth, marking a 675-year gap between the last significant visit by the species known as Redacted. This visiting cadence is expected to speed up over time, as the remaining humans continue to sharpen their focus on building technology to allow humanity to reproduce in a speedy and productive manner. Jesus Christ. Our planet is a fucking farm. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The tape cut away to a larger view of the Congress-like room, the somber committee members in attendance, and the members of the choir in the corner, who I could only imagine looked horrified. Where were the visitors? Why couldn't I see them? The camera then panned to a number of larger, empty seats, the same slow style of video panning as the one that happened earlier with the committee members. No visible entities in the seats, but the seats themselves looked blurry. The man at the podium carried on with his speech, as the camera pan on those blurry seats continued. We should acknowledge the privilege of knowing that there is indeed life in the cosmos. That extraterrestrial life has chosen to visit our planet. And that the cycle and balance provided by nature extends beyond the confines of planet Earth. Much like humanity has found its place on Earth in the food chain, we acknowledge our place in the divine order of things when encountered with beings of greater power, understanding, cognitive function, and evolutionary progression. Fucking hell, I shouldn't have stayed late at work. I should have made my identity clear from the very beginning. I knew that I wasn't supposed to see this. And while it really looked like the speaker was about to cry. While the process of consumption is a painful and lengthy one, we respect the trade-off that comes with the preservation of our species. We also acknowledge, as part of the promise, that substitutes for human life in the form of clones, should we discover that technology in the future, or other living species, will never function as viable alternatives for nourishment, the speaker continued. I didn't need to know this. This whole thing was way too specific for me. Our final major acknowledgement, as part of this agreement, is that we accept, redacted, as the Great Almighty, as the entities we will now refer to as God. God, as an interstellar species, has revealed itself to us, and thus, the continued existence of, redacted, is now the true priority of the people of our planet. We are blessed to play a part in the continuation of God. In God we trust. Amen. The tape then cut to footage of the choir, as the speaker continued. We bless our visitors with this gift. A performance of the national anthems of all major nations of the world will now commence. Audio of a very loud backing track of the Star-Spangled Banner started playing from the video as my stomach sank. The tape showed footage of the choir singing on top of the track. Not sure if it was because they were scared for their lives, but I could really tell they were singing their hearts out. As they sang, the camera continued to pan over the blurry seats. They finished singing the anthem, and suddenly... Fast forwarding. Fucking hell. I had forgotten I was sitting in a room. I had disengaged from the video for a brief moment. I had mentally returned to the present day. This was our world. This was our fucking lives. The men at the front continued fast-forwarding through the tape. It looked like they were skipping through performances of the other national anthems. The fast-forwarding went on for a while. Every small while, it looked like a new choir group was entering the Congress-like room to sing a different national anthem. On and on the tape went. I had to fight the urge to pass out. One of the men at the front of our room, standing next to the TV, started speaking up. We are legally obligated to get to the end of this tape, but you don't need to look at the rest of it. Please feel free to look down, or close your eyes, or grab a snack, he said. I noticed the others seated in the room were taking that advice. Most of them decided to look straight down. For some weird reason, I couldn't look away. The fast-forwarding progressed. On the tape, it was yet another choir group joining to perform an anthem. And then another. And then another. It looked like we were near the end. The fast-forwarding now showed a conversation between the man at the podium and another man who was whispering in his ear. The man at the podium was vehemently shaking his head. The other man continued whispering. This continued on. Eventually, there was a quick moment of the man at the podium begrudgingly nodding. The last few fast-forwarded moments of the tape remain burned in my memory to this very moment. They were pandemonium. The attendees were sitting in their chairs, frozen, shivering, crying. The people in the various choirs were running around the rooms in fast motion, as blurry spots started covering them and ungodly things started happening to them. Fuck. Why didn't I look away? If ever there was a fucking time to follow orders. It felt like the whole thing went on for longer than it should have. Finally, the men at the front of our room stopped the fast-forwarding. They pressed play on the tape to cover the very final moment. In the tape, the man at the podium, clearly emotional, spoke his final line. The agreement has been ratified by, redacted. Thank you all for attending. The final shot of the video is the full room. The committee members in their seats, shivering and crying. The dismantled and bloodied choir members strewn about the room. The blurry seats with blood smeared on them. The video then cut away, back to that same insignia on a black backdrop. The presidential libraries. That eagle. Those stars. The navy blue hand on the wing of the eagle. The lights in our room turned on. The rest of the night was a blur. The men at the front of the room told us it was best for us to sit for an hour to digest the information. No discussion about the video was allowed to take place. When we were ready to stand, we were allowed to leave and go home. They gave us some pointers on how to accept the information over the coming weeks. Things like taking long walks, exercising, watching a sitcom, etc. I wasn't worried about them realizing that I wasn't supposed to be there. If anything, I felt a strange camaraderie with everyone in the room. We were all, truly, in the same boat. As soon as I left the building and got in my car, I just drove. For as long as I could. I would stop for gas, then I'd keep driving. I'd stop again. Then I'd keep driving. Again. And again. I'm holed up in a hotel now. I'm just glad I could get this off my chest. The funny thing is, all I can think about is the length of that stupid tape. While I can't confirm, I feel like if it were played straight through without fast forwarding, it would have only been 3 hours. I wonder if the 4-hour tape rumor came from the fact that we all needed that extra hour to digest the information. And now, you're probably wondering, why don't I name the species that is going to spell humanity's doom throughout the rest of time? Why am I calling them redacted? Well, as the self-appointed leader of the Committee for the Acknowledgement that we should have just chosen extinction, I don't feel the need to honor our captors by calling them by their name. If I don't see you again, Reddit, I appreciate the water cooler conversation. The end. Next story. As I got on the elevator, the man getting off whispered something strange to me. Don't get off until you hit the 9th floor. No exceptions. But my interview is on 5, I replied. I'll only say this only one more time. Don't get off until you hit 9th. No other floor is safe. It's crazy, but something about the way he said it penetrated my skull. He was serious. And he looked nervous, like he had to fight every instinct in his body to say that to me. The doors closed, while I thought to myself, who the fuck says anything like that? As I went to hit the button for the 5th floor, some anxiety came over me. I shook it off and pressed it. The guy was probably just off his rockers. The elevator went up. I scanned my surroundings, a TV bolted to the top corner of the elevator, playing the Weather Channel, a mirror for the back wall of the elevator, and some cozy lounge-style music playing. Pretty standard stuff. Now arriving at the 5th floor. Weird, not sure if I'd ever been in an elevator that announced each floor it was arriving at. I was sure that if I worked in this building, this would get pretty old quickly. Ding! The doors opened on 5. In front of me was a reception area with a woman seated at the front desk. She stood up from her seat. Mr. Davis. You're early. The gentleman's warning from earlier played in my head. We'll be ready for your interview in a few moments. In the meantime, please feel free to take a seat. Thank you, I responded. If I'm, early, maybe I can come back in a few minutes? Nonsense. We'll see if we can speed things up. He's been very excited to meet you. The elevator doors started closing. I held them open. I wasn't sure what to do here, but everything seemed fine enough. Granted, the receptionist did seem a bit eager, but beyond that. From my vantage point, I scanned the office space behind the front desk area. All looked normal: cubicles, folks clicking away at their computer, a kitchen area. Pretty unremarkable. That is, except for the portrait off at the far end of the office floor. It was very large. I couldn't tell what the picture was of, but I did see a group of employees staring at it, almost admiring it. "Your wife's name is Meredith, right?" I froze as the receptionist's question shot a dart right through me. I didn't remember the job application form ever asking for my wife's name. "You two are thinking of having children, right? If it's a boy, you want to name him Sam?" What the fuck? Forget that she was right on the money. This was something I'd never spoken about before to anyone, including my wife. Before I could answer, the office workers surrounding the large portrait started singing the happy birthday song loudly, in complete and perfect unison. Someone brought out a birthday cake and presented it to the portrait. A portrait that, after a bit of squinting, I realized was a very large version of my high school yearbook photo. I backed into the elevator and pressed the close door button. I panicked as it took its sweet time to register. Press. 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 Come the fuck on. After what felt like an eternity, the doors started closing. As they closed, I heard the receptionist. "I'm so curious to know what your insides taste like, Michael." Fuck. Me. 9th floor. I needed to go to the 9th floor. I found the 9th floor button and pressed it. It felt like it didn't register my push, so I pressed the button again. And again. Come on, come on, come on, 9th fucking floor. I tried again and again, but nothing was happening. Fuck it. I'll go back to the ground floor, I thought to myself. Back to the start. As I went to press the G button, I realized it was missing. Just that one singular button gone. Fuck. I was getting claustrophobic. I took in deep breaths to prevent myself from having a full-blown episode. The elevator started moving up again. A panel above the elevator doors lit up with the following number, 11. Someone was calling the elevator. I started talking to myself to self-soothe. It's okay, someone will call the 9th floor soon. That's where I'll get off. As the elevator approached its new destination, I noticed that the background lounge music in the elevator had changed. It was now an instrumental arrangement of Happy Birthday. Huh. Not sure why this thing thought it was my birthday. I glanced at the weather report on the TV. At least it was going to be sunny all week. Silver linings. Now arriving at the 11th floor. Ding! The doors opened. I hung around the inside corner of the elevator beside the buttons. No need to have another nightmarish experience, right? An old woman stepped onto the elevator. Great, I'm sure this will be easy to explain to her. She smiled at me as the doors closed. With a lump in my throat, I asked, "What floor?" "Ground floor, please." I'm sorry ma'am, but that button is missing. Maybe we could wait until someone calls us to the 9th floor?" 9th? No, I think I'll just go to the 2nd floor instead, then. She went to press the button. "Ma'am, I don't think it'd be safe to. I have plenty of friends on the 2nd floor. It'll be okay." And she pressed it. I didn't feel comfortable cornering an elderly stranger in a seemingly haunted elevator. But I tried again to convince her. I know this sounds weird, but I have it under good authority that the second floor probably isn't safe. I'd strongly recommend not getting off until we reach 9. She smiled. Dear, it'll be all right. You know, I like to take all opportunities that are given to me. It's a shame that you turned your opportunity down. I know the folks on 5 are very disappointed. I backed up into the corner of the elevator. I saw the reflection of the old lady in the elevator's back mirror. She looked ghastly. Otherworldly. Now arriving at the second floor. The doors opened. She smiled at me again, and then exited. I poked my head around the corner to look at the second floor. It was damp. It looked old. More like a cave than an office. I heard a low rumble. A man dressed in a fancy suit approached the elevator doors and held them open before they could close. You getting off here too, champ? I heard that 5 wanted you. I think we can give you a better offer. I'm good. You sure, bud? The salary is $800,000 every hour. I'm good. I'm kidding, bud. The salary is we remove your eyes so you don't have to see him. The floor went pitch black. The low rumble got much louder and started reverberating in my ears. Suddenly, the businessman grabbed me by the collar and tried to pull me out of the elevator. I clung onto the ends of it. Fuck. Fuck. I started kicking and head-butting him. I was able to make him let go of me momentarily, as I desperately pressed on the close doors button. Miraculously, the elevator responded much quicker this time and they closed immediately. I tried the 9th floor button again. Didn't work. I pressed 8 instead. Anything to get away from this hellhole of a floor. I heard a loud banging on the door as the elevator started taking off. Like an aggressive knock. Bang! 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 As I saw the floor numbers rising. 3, 4, 5. The banging continued. Just as loud. What the fuck? 6th floor. 7th floor. The banging on the door didn't subside. Now arriving at the 8th floor. I pressed the button for the 23rd floor. Just as we arrived on 8, I mashed the closed doors button just as the elevator doors were about to open. The banging continued as the elevator doors started denting. The elevator continued going up. 9, 10, 11. The banging softened. 14, 15. And softened. 19, 20, 21. And disappeared. Now arriving at the 23rd floor. It was gone. Thank fucking God. I exhaled. It felt like I'd narrowly avoided disaster. The doors opened. I scanned the new floor, and I realized I was back on the ground floor. That's what it looked like, anyways. Did I escape? Was I finally free? A man stood not too far from the door. He looked familiar, but I couldn't exactly place him. Hey man, he spoke. Was this the guy who got off the elevator just as I got on? Hey. It's over, man. You got out, he told me. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but I had to fight it. But you said the 9th floor was the only safe one, right? That was a trick. You followed your gut and you were right. 23rd floor. The real safe floor. You can step out now, man. I didn't leave. There's someone here who really wants to see you. I couldn't move. He wants to give you a job. He thinks you're gonna be great. Why the fuck couldn't I move? He's in the other room. I'm gonna fetch him, okay? All you have to do is look at him. It'll feel a bit weird at first, but then it'll all be okay. It's a permanent position. Great benefits. It is fully on-site, but no better birthday present than a new job, right? I lowered my gaze to the floor. I forced myself to mutter the following words: "It's not my fucking birthday." As he left to fetch whoever he was meaning to fetch, he gave me the following response: "Relax, man. No cursing on the job. We're a family here." It felt like I could only move a centimeter at a time. A true snail's pace. I inched my finger closer and closer to the closed door button. I heard footsteps. He was coming back. With every fiber of my being, I pushed through. I hit the button. The doors closed, and I collapsed to the floor, free from whatever weird force was stopping me from moving. "I'll let you two talk more on the elevator," I heard him say from outside the doors. What? Instinctively, I looked around. To my surprise, there was nothing. The elevator was the same as it had always been. A lengthy exhale. I was done with all of this. At this point, I would have taken death over continuing this bullshit any longer. As I pondered my next move in this hopeless situation, I noticed something strange. The button to the 9th floor was lit up. An ominous, crimson-red color. Before I could do anything else, my phone started ringing. I checked the call. It was my wife. I answered. "Babe. Fuck, I don't know why I didn't even think to call you. I'm trapped in an elevator and fucked up shit is happening, and maybe I should call the cops. Fuck Hon. Don't go to the 9th floor." "What? Wait, how do you even?" "It's a trick, honey. You have to trust me. The man from before was lying to you. It's not safe. None of this has been safe. How do you even know everything that's happening? You just need to trust me, hon." I paused. "So what do you want me to do then?" A demon on the other side of the phone answered this time. "Go to your interview." I hung up the call and in a panic, I mashed on the 9th floor button. The elevator started rising again. Even with me hanging up the call, the muffled sound of the demonic voice coming from my phone continued. "Go to your interview. Go to your interview. Go to your interview." I pulled out my phone and flung it to the ground as hard as I could. I stomped on it angrily. The warped sound of "go to your interview" slowly started dying out. But suddenly, the elevator started shaking. It was continuing to go up, but it was faster than usual. Really, really fucking fast all of a sudden. Almost like the 9th floor was now way below me. It felt like an amusement park ride with no brakes on it. Loose. Dangerous. Flinging up at an insane speed, almost as if it was falling upwards. But I pressed 9. I screamed to myself, exasperated. It didn't matter. Now arriving at the 41st floor. God, what the fuck? I was brought to my knees by the speed of the elevator traveling faster and faster. Now arriving at the 90th floor. The buttons didn't even go past 52. Now arriving at the 141st floor. Fuck. Now arriving at the 230th floor. Now arriving at the 401st floor. I felt like I was inside a bullet. The pleasant voice of the elevator lady was getting deeper and deeper as we rose. Now arriving at the 840th floor. The voice started croaking. A demonic sound this time. Now arriving at somewhere nice. A sudden halt. The elevator stopped. The doors didn't open though. The panel above the elevator doors had no indication on what floor we were on. As I sat, I heard what could be best described as the sounds of hell coming from outside the elevator. Low grunts of pain. Crackling. A dark hymn. Was this where I was supposed to get off? Before I could ponder the question further, I heard a soft tapping on the elevator. A voice from outside. "Do you want to trade?" said the voice. I decided to bite, for reasons I still don't fully understand. "What do you mean? What if you stay on this floor forever, and I get to go home?" I think I'm good. But I really want to go home." It almost sounded like the voice of a kid. Fucking hell. I am sorry, kid, I mustered back. "It's okay." An awkward silence between us. "He told me that he wants to wish you a happy birthday," said the kid. I think he's got it wrong. "Today isn't my birthday." "It is," he responded. "It's the first day of your new life. Your birthday. He wants you to look at the TV." "What?" I looked at the TV in the top corner of the elevator, hoping to see the one constant I'd had during this whole cursed trip, the weather. Instead, the TV was now showcasing what looked to be CCTV footage. Grainy footage from a camera, of the exact elevator I was in. A live feed of this exact moment. Except, the TV showed me lying down. Looking up with a wide smile on my face. And something above me on the ceiling. Looking straight down at me. Him. The lights in the elevator went off. The elevator plummeted downwards, as I closed my eyes and screamed for dear fucking life. I waited for the impact. For what I knew was my demise. Here it comes. Here it fucking comes. I'm not ready. I'm not ready at all. Now arriving at the 9th floor. Ding! The doors opened. Wait, what? 9th floor? I peeked out from the elevator. Another reception desk. Wait, is this really the... I was interrupted by a voice from the outside. You coming out or what, you fucking moron? I got to my feet. The feeling of distrust, anxiety, whatever you'd call it. My fear intuition. It was gone. I felt light. Fuck it. I stepped onto the floor and approached the counter. The receptionist handed me what looked like a button for the elevator. For the ground floor, she said. Single use only. I took it and headed towards the elevator. Then, I turned back to face her. Can I maybe take the stairs? She shook her head. If you didn't like the elevator, then you're really not gonna like the stairs. Fair enough. I got into the elevator. I said a silent prayer to myself as I put the button where it belonged. It fit without any issue. I pressed it, and the elevator went down. It was a smooth ride. Now arriving at the ground floor. Ding! As I got ready to exit, I realized that the ground floor button was missing once again. Strange. I didn't linger on it. I marched out, ready to get the fuck out of this building. I noticed a woman running onto the elevator. I tried to stop her, but something in my body wouldn't let me. The most I could muster was putting my hand on the door to relay a message to her before the doors closed. Don't get off until you reach the 9th floor. No matter what. The woman just smiled at me. Happy birthday, Michael. The end. Next story. I applied for a marketing assistant job and they asked me to take a test. It wasn't what I expected. This is probably going to shock you, but I've been finding it pretty hard to land a job with my poli-sci degree. Crazy, right? I've been applying to pretty much anything and everything under the sun. Admin assistant? Sure. Data entry? Why not? Digital content specialist, not sure what that entails, but hell fucking yes. Having clocked in at nearly 500 applications with no responses, outside of automated rejection emails, of course, I was naturally starting to sweat a bit. Thankfully, my throwaway application to the marketing assistant role at Nexinova Systems was able to get a bite. It was a joyous occasion, and soon after my response to their brief email questionnaire, they were already set for me to come on site to take some sort of marketing test. Deciding to not overthink a good thing, I made my way to their office, located in a part of the city I'd never been to before. I took the elevator up to the 7th floor in the towering, yet somewhat run-down, building that housed them and other companies. As the doors opened, I was met with a depressing-looking reception area and a rather uninspired logo. A nervous-looking man sat at the reception desk. Amanda, for Nexinova Systems, right? 5 o'clock test? That's right, I said, as cheerily as I could muster. He looked around, awkwardly drumming at his desk for a while. He grimaced, as if he were deep in thought. Finally, after a painful minute of waiting, he said, "All right, let's go," and lifted from his seat. I followed him down the lengthy hallway, past dingy offices and tables with scattered paperwork on them. The office was basically empty, I clocked, like one guy drinking coffee in the kitchen, and maybe 10 flickering lights on my walk. Disappointed with the office decor thus far, I was tempted to ask the guy escorting me more about what Nexinova Systems did. Yes, they did have a website that I scoured during my 5 minutes of pre-interview prep, but there wasn't much on it except for vague mentions of market research and top-notch product evaluation. We arrived at the testing room. That's what the placard on the door said, anyways. He held it open, and I entered the very long and narrow, almost rectangular-shaped room. It was completely empty inside, save for an old computer on a small desk in the center, a gray folding chair positioned in front of it. As I approached the desk, I noticed a row of windows to my left that unveiled a massive, seemingly endless warehouse below. The receptionist motioned for me to take a seat, and so I did. He booted up the computer, and before I could even ask him any questions, he was already on his way out. I'm pretty sure I heard him half-heartedly mutter "best of luck" before he closed the door behind him. I'll be honest. I wasn't particularly excited to work here. But the prospect of being able to afford Hot Pockets again was enticing, so I decided to press on. I examined the archaic computer that was in front of me. Bulky, beige, 15-inch CRT screen, with a similarly chunky keyboard sitting in front of it. Fucking prehistoric, but a welcome throwback to late 90s computing nonetheless. Ah, what a simple time that was. A time where I could spend my full weekend wrapped in blankets while watching TV. Send me back there, please. The computer finished its startup sequence, and immediately, I was greeted with a form asking questions like my name, my email, and the position I was interviewing for. I promptly filled it out. After that, the test kicked off. The questions were simple at first. What are the 4 P's of marketing, and what does positioning mean in marketing terms? Stuff that I was able to address reasonably well with my 1 hour of studying this morning. Thank you very much, ChatGPT. As I kept up the momentum, carving through the questions with relative ease, I started to feel a bit proud. Maybe, just maybe, I was assistant material after all. I wrapped up the section, only to be greeted by a black screen with a small icon of a spinning hourglass on it, indicating that the next screen was loading. Underneath the hourglass, the following text slowly appeared, displayed in a white, jagged, dated-looking font. By the 7th day God had finished the work he had been doing, so on the 7th day he rested from all his work. With the universe bearing solemn witness, God, in his infinite majesty, succumbed to the slumber of death. What? I was by no means up to date on my Bible lore. It had been well over a decade since my mom last forced me to go to church, but I'm pretty sure God dying on the 8th day wasn't part of the King James canon. Before I could muse on this quote for longer, a voice blaring from somewhere jolted my attention away. "Don't worry about that," said a voice that came through loud, tinny, and mildly distorted. "Is that a PA system?" I turned around and confirmed my suspicion. Nestled in the corner at the junction of 2 walls and the ceiling, was a PA speaker that looked tarnished from years, nay, decades it seemed, of use. Is that a normal thing for marketing firms? I turned back to face the computer. The next section had loaded. On the screen was an image crafted in a 2D retro art style reminiscent of old educational games like Oregon Trail and Math Blaster. There was a boy sitting at the edge of his bed in a dimly lit room, watching a TV screen that had cast a pale glow around him. Though mostly static, the image had a subtle animation, a soft twinkling emanating from the TV. At the bottom of the screen, text displaying the following question appeared. "We want the child to remember the joy of drinking Coca-Cola. Do you recommend A. Showing him a 10-second ad every 15 minutes? B. Running a 2-minute storytelling ad once every 3 hours? I struggled a bit as I thought through the question. I wasn't sure which cadence was the more effective one. The muffled voice off the PA interrupted my thoughts. "It's a trick question," the voice echoed. I raised an eyebrow, instinctively turning around again to look at the PA. As I turned back, I noticed that I'd missed a timer that had been running in the corner of the screen. It had already reached 0. I sat confusedly, wondering what the PA had meant. Suddenly, the child at the edge of the bed started to fade away, vanishing as if he were an apparition. I heard a ding sound, indicating I had somehow answered correctly. New text appeared at the bottom of the screen. Correct. The child was not real. Huh. Convinced that this question was some sort of dramatized interpretation of a rule about marketing to children that I had missed, I decided to take the victory. But as I sat, the image of the empty room with the TV playing lingered for longer than I would have liked. Finally, the computer transitioned to the next question. On screen, in a similar 2D animated style, was a gardener donning a sun hat and a green apron, carrying around a watering can, sprinkling pixelated droplets on the flowers in his busy garden. Text appeared at the bottom of the screen. Jack is thinking about the best digital marketing strategies to utilize for his flower business called Jack's Flowers. What are your suggestions for Jack? A prompt with an empty text box appeared, awaiting my response. In the background, Jack continued adorably flowering his plants. Not really feeling as in my element as before, I typed a generic answer, market on Facebook and Instagram. As soon as I submitted, Jack paused his gardening, glanced up at the screen with a smile, and offered a thumbs up in approval. A new text box emerged, accompanied with the instruction, "Give Jack more advice." I thought over what to type next, but as I ruminated, I noticed a shuffling in the bushes in the corner of Jack's garden. Two bright red eyes appeared in the hedges. Distracted, I carelessly typed another generic answer in the text box, "Do an email marketing campaign?" The text box disappeared, my message received, and again, Jack flashed me a thumbs up. The red-eyed character in the corner of the screen stepped out of the bushes, its full figure now in frame. It was hard to make sense of what the creature was. The smiling, demonic-looking thing was animated in the same art style as everything else, and yet, it looked completely out of place. It crept towards Jack, holding a pair of head shears. New text box appeared. "Give Jack even more advice." I typed, "Turn around Jack, something is coming for you." But weirdly, as I pressed enter, the text changed right in front of my eyes to, "Focus on your fucking gardening, Jack." I whispered, "What in the ever-loving fuck is this test?" under my breath as Jack flashed me another sign of approval, and the twisted entity arrived behind him, shears readied. I tensed up, but thankfully, the screen went black. When it returned, it was a tranquil scene in the garden. Jack was nowhere to be seen, and the demented red creature was now the one attending to the plants. Except, the plants looked to be twice as large now, and the pixelated droplets falling from the watering can looked a bit too red to be water. Genuinely disturbed at how morbid this test was, not to mention thrown off by how dark the room had gotten all of a sudden, I was again greeted by the crackle of the PA system. "Fair warning," the amplified voice reverberated through the room, "this next question requires a very fast answer." Oh great! The image on screen shifted from the garden to the next, similarly styled 2D animation, the disturbing scene of a woman, bound in ropes, being lowered into a large bed of spikes. A timer in the corner of the screen was counting down from 20 as a new question appeared. Keeping psychological pricing in mind, what should the price of the bed of spikes should be? A. $11. B. $10.99. C. $9.50. And I think I'm done here. I got up from the chair, now convinced that this whole thing was just some sort of twisted prank, when I caught a movement in the corner of my eye. Glancing towards the windows on my left, which overlooked the vast warehouse beneath the interview room, I noticed a rope swiftly descend down, with what I could have sworn was a person attached to its tail end. In a panic, I rushed to sit back down, half hoping that I had just hallucinated that. The counter descended down from 9, 8, 7, 6, and with the animated woman now seconds from impalement, I hastily guessed B. Ding! The sound from the computer indicated that my answer was correct. But, on screen, the rope-bound woman still tumbled down into the bed of spikes. Despite the dated graphics, it was a nightmarish sight. I sat still for a moment. Then, in a strange reflex that betrayed my usual timid self, I got up from my seat and walked towards the windows to look into the warehouse room. As I peered down, I saw a bed of spikes, a near-perfect 3D replica of what I'd seen on the computer screen, out below in the vast room. Beside this, a woman stood, her arms triumphantly raised. To her left and right, there were two individuals who helped steady her upright stance. A banner unfurled in the warehouse with the words "She's all right" written on it, confetti falling all around the scene below. Seriously, what the fuck is this? As I tried to make sense of the sight, I noticed that the woman, though apparently in a celebratory pose, was leaking blood. The people at her sides were propping her body up, and especially, holding her neck up, but the holes in her body made it very clear that she had, in fact, been impaled. The lights in the warehouse room immediately flickered off. I was now staring into a sea of black. I stepped away from the window and made a beeline for the room's exit. Whatever the hell this test was, or this fucking job for that matter, I wanted nothing to do with it. A voice from the PA blared, seemingly in reaction. "Don't worry, she's safe. Didn't you read the banner?" I pulled at the door. It was locked. Of course it was fucking locked. I pounded at it, continuing to pull as hard as I could. Static from the PA crinkled as more words came through. "There isn't that much left in the test. Get me the fuck out of here," I yelled. A pause, as if the voice was thinking. Then, more hissing from the PA system. "You can leave when the test is over. Promise. I'm not fucking interested in this job anymore." "The hallway isn't safe right now," said the speaker, cutting me off. "Please." Weirdly, despite the muffled, overmodulated quality of the PA voice, something in the delivery of those words sounded authentic. Also, the hallway, which now had most of its lights off, looked different. Narrower. There were fewer offices lining the halls, fewer bulletin boards. Heck, the actual light bulbs looked different. The more I stared, the more I noticed a disconnect between the walls I remembered walking down and the ones I was looking at now. "Where the fuck am?" "Please take a seat," the voice echoed. I thought about it. Staring into the hallway was bringing about a more and more uncomfortable feeling in my chest with each passing second. Staving off my body's urge to hyperventilate, I obliged with the tinny voice's request and returned to my seat, hoping the test would offer a distraction, more than anything else. A video player popped up on the computer screen, with text below it reading, "Let's do a recap of your journey thus far." I pressed play on the video, hoping that its content would somehow alleviate my mounting anxiety. The video was 30 seconds long. It contained 3 equal-length snippets. First, it displayed footage of me. A younger me. No more than 10 years old, playing with toys in my room. The closet door in my childhood room hung open, and within its shadows, a pair of glowing red eyes stared out. Next, it was footage of teenage me, sitting in a high school exam hall taking a test. A comical-looking arrow was overlaid on the screen, pointing at the door in the distant corner of the room. Outside the door, the glare of faint, red eyes could be seen. Finally, I saw grainy footage of me, from earlier today, coming in for the interview. Except, the footage showed me approaching the building while walking, backwards. Through the lobby, and towards the elevator, backwards. And then, all the way to the interview room, backwards, with no one escorting me. By this point, I was on the edge of breaking. I shrunk into myself, fearing that any sudden movement, or hell, even me just turning around at this point, would bring about some horrible fate. So, I just focused on the test. I hoped that if I drowned everything else out, and kept my attention on the horrific nonsense on the screen, that somehow, I'd be safe from the rest of the world. I pushed down the urge to cry, barf, jump out the window, and kept myself paralyzed. If I make myself small enough, I can get through this. Terrible logic, I know. The spinning hourglass signifying the loading screen stuck around for a few minutes. Then, it transitioned to the next part of the test. The screen now displayed an animated family of 3 sitting at a dining table, sunlight streaming in from the large window behind them. Mother and daughter sat on opposite sides of the table, while the father faced the screen. The art style and graphics looked more modern than the earlier parts of the test. After a brief moment, the image transformed. Mother and daughter were still eating dinner the same as before, but the father was now aggressively smiling. His being looked as if it were somehow oscillating, almost aflame. There was a hand on his shoulder placed by a cosmic-looking figure standing beside him. The figure radiated a brilliant blue. The window outside now showcased a world that was much darker, with swirls of black and crimson red streaming in. A prompt appeared at the bottom of the screen. The counter in the corner was already at 5 and dropping down as the question appeared. The new god of our world has just pitched a very intriguing idea to this man. Do you have a better pitch? And as soon as the text box appeared for me to type my answer, it was already gone, and a weird buzzing sound played, indicating that I'd gotten the question wrong. The image transformed again. The father was smiling, almost staring right at me. His hands were resting on the table, each holding a fork and knife with pride. The cosmic figure beside him had similarly turned to face the screen. Mother and daughter were no longer there. As I tried to make sense of the image, I noticed a leg peeking out from under the dinner table, obscured by the tablecloth. A flashing arrow appeared, pointing directly to the space under the table. Text appeared at the screen's bottom. The mother and the daughter are now underneath the table. Would you like to see them? No. I'd rather not. The arrow kept blinking, while the father and the cosmic figure's images seemed to somehow intensify. I kept my eyes closed for the next minute. Eventually, I squinted to see the relieving sight of the screen turning to black. Please let this be over. Please let this cursed, miserable fucking experience be. I heard a strange, hollow sound come from the computer as the next section loaded. With respect to Bill Gates and the fine people at Microsoft, what I saw next was something that was beyond the capabilities of a computer seemingly running on Windows 99. On screen was incredibly high-quality video footage of outer space. As if an astronaut deep in the cosmos had a GoPro strapped to their helmet or something. I heard the sounds of deep, rhythmic breathing as this unknown individual gently rotated amidst the expanse, surrounded by stars in the sea of black. Large, white text appeared in the middle of the screen. Sell 'em on the stars. And then a rudimentary-looking text box appeared over some of the most high-quality space footage I'd ever seen in my life. It didn't make any sense. What the fuck am I supposed to do here? I typed a generic as hell answer that even I didn't fully believe. Isn't the universe beautiful? I pressed enter and the text box disappeared. Suddenly, in the black abyss on screen, the distant stars started fading away, one by one, like light bulbs dimming. The heavy breathing continued, as the presumed astronaut mumbled in a language that sounded otherworldly. Soon, there were only a few stars remaining. As they flickered off, I heard the voice mutter, almost cry, in plain English. "It's so beautiful." The screen remained black for quite some time. But something in me stirred. I knew that there was still something left. An attempted whisper over the PA confirmed just as much. "Last question," resounded the voice off the speaker system. I readied myself. The new image finished loading. On screen, there was a pretty cheerful, generic-looking 2D animated guy standing in a living room. He looked like the office assistant Clippy had come to life or something. He had his finger placed on top of a light switch, the living room window beside him showcasing the cosmos. "All right, last question." The animated character shrugged his shoulders in an exaggerated manner, with a speech bubble appearing beside his head. It read, "Should we join God in his slumber?" A flashing arrow pointed to the light switch. What? He opened the window in his room, revealing a zoomed-out view of the Milky Way, the same Milky Way image I'd seen in like a million textbooks growing up. The word bubble next to his mouth had new words now. Is this product at the end of its life cycle? I was stirring, confused. A text box appeared. I typed no. "Why?" responded the character with an annoyed, exasperated sigh. Immediately, graphic real-life images flashed across the screen over a split second, the decapitated gardener's blood pouring into a bed of flowers, the red-eyed entity emerging from the closet in my room, the mother and daughter underneath the dinner table. As I recoiled in fear, the character was suddenly back on screen, back in his living room. He broke into a comically sad gesture as his speech bubble updated, "But there is so much suffering here. It's funny." It felt like I'd hit rock bottom when I first entered the lobby. But somehow, the floor on this thing kept getting lower and lower. The character motioned to the Milky Way galaxy outside his window. Then he looked at me intently. "Justify the existence of this product." A new text box appeared, awaiting my input. In the corner of the screen, a timer started counting down from 20, 19. Christ dude, I am not cut out for this. Matter of fact, I'm not cut out for anything. 18, 17. Slowly, the room started rumbling. I was suddenly concerned about what would happen if I didn't answer the question. 16, 15. Fuck, I just wanted a fucking job. Does everything in my stupid, sad life have to be a nightmare? 14, 13. If I knew how to justify this fucking product, I wouldn't be here interviewing for a fucking shit marketing assistant job for no fucking money with no fucking life or career prospects. Jesus fucking. 12, 11. Through the now erratic rumbling of the room, which felt like a full-blown earthquake at this point, I heard a voice barely croak through the PA. "I believe in you." 10, 9. There has to be some fucking reason for this to exist. 8, 7. I searched my brain for a reason. Thinking through my experience of adult life so far, I struggled to find a good one. 6, 5. A memory dislodged itself from my subconscious. Maybe it was jogged by the CRT screen, or the 90s graphics of this test. 4. A memory of me as a kid. Sitting on the sofa. 3. covered in blankets. Drinking hot cocoa. 2. Watching a Christmas movie I can't remember the name of. 1. I forced my words into the text box before it disappeared. It's sometimes occasionally cozy. The split second before the text box disappeared, I could have sworn that the typos had, somehow, been corrected. The galaxy now appeared on screen in high definition, the revised text triumphantly appearing underneath it in a jagged, dated-looking white font. The universe, it's sometimes, occasionally cozy. I won't lie to you, it looked pretty stupid. We were back to the animated living room, the character now tapping on his chin. He lifted his finger. I like it. Well done. You, my friend, are quite the marketer. Before I could even process the compliment, the screen fractured with a loud crack. Smoke seeped from the computer's vents, accompanied by a whirring and sizzling sound. Heart racing, I jumped up from the chair and backed away. I guess, the test is over. The lights in the test room, the hallways outside, and the warehouse visible through the window all flickered back on simultaneously. I nervously stepped towards the door, and finding it unlocked as I pulled, I ran out of the room screaming. I held my fists up while sprinting, as dozens of scattered employees, including, I shit you not, the woman I previously saw get impaled, all clapped for me. The sight of them surrounding me and cheering was not helpful. I'm pretty sure it only made me scream louder as I escaped. I arrived at the elevator doors already open and lunged inside, hastily jabbing the closed door button. The receptionist, voice no longer warbled by the PA, was barely able to squeak out, "I knew you could do it," before the doors shut on him. What the fucking Christ? I made it home. The next few days were a blur of sleep, drinking, sex, and denial. It took me a week to feel comfortable checking my emails again. When I did, I was, for reasons I still don't quite understand, oddly disappointed that Nexanova Systems hadn't sent me another email. Kinda thought I nailed that test, no? I looked up the job posting again, but it was now inconspicuously missing. In fact, their whole website was gone. I looked up their address on Google Maps, but there was no history of them ever being in that building, or them existing in the first place, for that matter. All I had was that initial email they'd sent me. HRM, well. At least they liked my resume, I guess. Anywho, back to the grind. These bills aren't going to pay for themselves, unfortunately. If anyone reading has any job leads I should look into, let a girl know. I'm motivated, I'm a hard worker, and I suppose I can now say that I work pretty well under pressure. The end.